What is up, boxing fans? What's up, FightHype family? In the place to be as always, your man Sean Zittel holding it down at the very high-tech and exclusive headquarters here in Las Vegas, Nevada for FightHype.com, bringing you another Z-Cap. We're going to start with O'Shaquie Foster becoming the new WBC super featherweight champion. Scored an upset. If you knew the tape and you knew both fighters heading in, it wasn't a huge upset, more of a mild upset. But an upset nonetheless. He was more than a plus 200 underdog against 36-0 Ray Vargas, and O'Shaquie Foster outboxes him to win that fight. And then we got to touch on once more the fight that still isn't actually announced. Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis. The fight we all hope does get announced that would end in a knockout should it be signed one way or the other. So we'll get to that. Ryan Garcia was at the Super Bowl. The head of Showtime Sports, Steven Espinoza, was at the Super Bowl. Maybe Tank was at the Super Bowl. Can't confirm that, but his representation, Ravone Littlejohn, a.k.a. 6'4", he was at the Super Bowl. So all teams involved in making a deal, they were there. Maybe they were just watching the football game like the rest of us, or maybe, hopefully, a deal is on the horizon, and part of that was being ironed out. So just going to let some more people head into the chat, and we'll get going here. Double R said, we here. Good to see you, Double R. Thank you for hopping in the chat. Appreciate everybody on this beautiful morning. Dreco King says, let's go. Johnny, good morning. Good morning to you too, brother. John Doe said, time to unfollow fake clickbait. I hear you, John. That is your prerogative. Ryan and Gervonta do drive the most clicks, so we did decide to lead off with the title Ryan and Tank as opposed to O'Shaquie Foster versus Ray Vargas. I just feel like, we would get more of you in here putting their names up front first instead of Foster and Vargas. I don't love that that's the way things are, but it is what it is. So that is your prerogative, sir. I hope you stick around and let us talk some boxing for the next hour. Good morning. Car fished me. Gerardo Mendoza. Southpaw TV. Ryan got dropped by Campbell. Let's be real. Tank puts Ryan to sleep. Fight is not happening. Might as well stop wasting your breath, says Aiden. Aiden, maybe you're right, but let's if it doesn't happen, let's examine the situation at hand. This may be the pivotal week after all. Some headlines, maybe a little bit going under the radar heading into Tank and Ryan that may or may not get in the way of that fight happening in this summer or this April, May, or June. It might not if the fight does happen, it might have to get pushed back at this point because April 15th is 8, 9, 10 weeks out. So we shall see. They've been leaking this announcement for 3 weeks now, says AP whatever. Hugh Evans saying it's not happening. Loco323 putting it on Gervonta, says Tank's full of it. But Rock B saying good morning and Gervonta is going to sleep Ryan. All right, well, just real quick before we hop into Foster and Vargas, it sounds like you guys want to talk Tank and Ryan first. So actually, I will start with that since that's what you guys came to see is Ryan and Tank, and then we will jump to O'Shaquie Foster taking out Ray Vargas. Quickly, before we get to that, great Super Bowl game last night. Hats off to Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. They both played incredible. Jalen Hurts, came up short, but played phenomenal. Both guys put on a show. Patrick Mahomes is special, man. Sucks that the game ended on a late call there, but I'll put it this way. The A-side fighter, Patrick Mahomes, he got out of there with the split decision victory. That's how it goes, right? When it's a close fight, benefit of the doubt, gonna go to the A side. So let's say last night Patrick Mahomes pulled out a hard-earned split decision as the A side over Jalen Hurts. Good stuff. Johnny saying that holding call ruined the game. It was a ticky-tack call, but technically he did hold Juju Smith-Schuster. But that's a tough call to decide the fate of a Super Bowl. But that was a great game, man. And Jalen Hurts, all class, kind of reminds me of Andre Ward in terms of his demeanor. Relating him to someone who's in boxing kind of reminds me of Andre Ward a little bit. Jalen Hurts, his demeanor, but all class in defeat. Patrick Mahomes, all class in victory. But let's get to boxing. That was some good stuff, man. Hopefully the 49ers get their shit together and they're playing in the Super Bowl next year. So, here we go. I was going to start with O'Shaquie Foster, but you people said no. We were ready for some Ryan and Tank, so I got you. All right, so looking at Ryan Garcia's profile, checking his little story. Clearly, he was at the game last night, right? So Ryan was on hand. He has a sponsorship with Gatorade, so I imagine that's what Ryan was doing out there. Got probably free comps and all that going to the game. So Ryan was in the house. Steven Espinoza was in the house. If you check his Twitter, the head of Showtime Sports trying to put this fight together. And then Ravon 6'4", Ravon Littlejohn, a.k.a. 6'4", Tank's guy, was out there as well. So I can't confirm if Gervonta was alongside him, but that means Tank's representation was there. Ryan, and I'm assuming as well his representation, maybe his lawyer Lupe Valencia was alongside him. So, maybe business was discussed there, but ultimately, and there were some jokes on Twitter about a halftime commercial, and against my better judgment, I actually entertained that idea until the commercials started rolling out, and I then remembered these commercials cost, $7 million minimum to get on the air, and then I said, well, then there's no way that they would spend that kind of money to announce a fight. So, but one thing that's being a little, unrecognized a little bit heading into this is there's a lot of assumptions in the industry that Davis he has his hit and run trial this Thursday. It's the 13th, February 16th. Gervonta has to appear in court for a hit and run, I believe, that followed the Leo Santa Cruz fight. And this isn't really giving us a whole lot of I feel like this is going a little bit under the radar. A lot of people, assuming that Gervonta will get through this and it won't affect the fight being made with Ryan Garcia. But part of me wonders if it in fact can, because when you look at the facts from Mr. Jake Donovan, a hell of a writer who works for Boxing Scene, when you look at it, there's a few things that stick out in this article, okay? So Davis faces a maximum of 50 months in prison if found guilty on all remaining charges. Most serious charge alleges that the boxer fled the scene of an accident involving bodily injury, along with driving on the highway while his license was suspended and revoked, each of which carry a maximum 1-year sentence. So out of the 14 charges, 2 of them separately alone carry a maximum of a year each. I doubt that would happen, but it's just something to look at. So a plea arraignment extended by the prosecution called for a 1-year suspended sentence, during which Davis would have to commit to 60 days of home confinement and work release. Davis was prepared to accept this plea and resume his boxing career, though it was deemed too lenient by the court after sympathizing with the remaining victim, Jair Smith, who was pregnant at the time of the crash, and told Judge Finn that she, quote, begged Mr. Davis, looked him in the eyes, said, I had to get home to my daughter, I'm pregnant. He never once came over to help me. Judge Finn, and now this is Judge Melissa Finn, and obviously she's a woman, and that adds to the speculation a little bit, because if anyone's going to sympathize with a pregnant woman in an accident, it's going to be another female judge, and so apparently, so the judge came back. Where was it? So among the initial charges, 4 counts of failure to meet. Anyways, the point here is her attorney, Gil Amaral, demands that the boxer stand trial, and if found guilty, be dealt a punishment befitting the alleged crime. So apparently the other 3 victims, they settled out of court. They took, they settled out of court, but Jair Smith is so far refusing. Part of me wonders, if the money goes up the day or 2 before the trial, if she will at the last moment settle out of court. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea exactly how that works. I do know civil cases, not criminal cases, but civil cases can be settled with money. Doesn't necessarily have to include jail or prison time. But then there's this quote, Miss Smith wants the court to know she won't be satisfied with anything other than a period of incarceration in order to make sure this person gets the message. I mean, that could be kind of negotiating tactics to drive a settlement up. But if you take the quote at face value, this woman is saying, I don't want money. I want him, to serve a sentence. So that's an issue because I'm looking for it here. There's a point where there was a counter offer given to Gervonta, and I'm looking for it here. It was where the judge offered him 120 days. So the judge came back and countered. Here it was. Davis previously rejected a similar plea agreement in March, which called for a 1-year suspended sentence and less than 120 days in prison. So Melissa Finn came back to Gervonta and his team and said, look, I'm not going to accept the 60 days and the suspended sentence, but I'll give you the suspended sentence if you do, less than 120 days. Gervonta came back and said no. So ultimately, they go to trial, and this has been a little under the radar, if you ask me. It's assumed that this won't come up as an issue, but since that trial, the incident in Florida happened that may or may not go over well with the judge or whatever. But part of me thinks this is part of what Oscar De La Hoya has been stalling for, because all along, I have definitely felt, based on my years covering the sport and these people involved in this situation, that De La Hoya would be very doesn't really want to do business with the PBC and Al Heyman and Steven Espinoza, because they had such a falling out following the Canelo Mayweather fight, where Oscar had to go into rehab that weekend. The weekend of the biggest fight he had yet to promote as a promoter. He fought against Floyd Mayweather, but this was the biggest fight he was ever going to promote, and he couldn't be ringside because he had to go into rehab. And that relationship between, Heyman, Espinoza, Richard Schaefer, Oscar De La Hoya slowly, kind of quickly dissolved after the weekend of that huge fight. And by 2015, PBC would be established. Oscar was on HBO. HBO refused to do business with Showtime. Golden Boy no longer did business with Showtime. And I even tweeted this back in the day, and I guess it's held up well. This was November 8th of 2017, and I said, Golden Boy Promotions working with Showtime again? I'll believe it when I see it. All promoters have indulged in these ridiculous politics dividing boxing. That's me holding, everyone accountable in that moment. Because, and here's the reason for the bad blood. Let Oscar De La Hoya tell it. It's two sides to a story, right? Let Oscar De La Hoya tell it. And his company and the fighters that were under his company were swindled for him while he had to go off to rehab from people he believed were his business partners alongside him. So let him tell it, and they ran a shady game while he was unwell and had to go to rehab. That's on Oscar, as a man, but let Oscar tell it, and they did shady dealings to try to usurp him and the company and the stable of fighters he built. And they did that, and they went off and took the talent that they did. Let Schaefer and Heyman and Espinoza tell it, and they'll say this man, was a drug addict, and he can't even be the figurehead. We're actually doing all the business. Al, Richard Schaefer, Steven, we're actually doing the real business. All Oscar has to do is show up and be the golden boy, and he can't even get that right now. So you know what I mean? We're doing all the real heavy lifting. We're really running Golden Boy Promotions and putting this fight together. He's just the figurehead. So, and I think, of course, the truth is somewhere in the middle between how both people see it. At the end of the day, the company does say Golden Boy. The man paid the cost to be the boss with his fists in the ring, building up the kind of profile that gives Golden Boy Promotion that clout. He did that. He did that. At the same time, they got their point. We can't be running a multi-hundreds of millions of dollar company putting on hundreds of millions of dollars fight, and you're a drug addict right now. So anyways, I say all that to say I've always known it's going to be a messy situation, and I don't think De La Hoya really wants to do business. I think PBC definitely wants to do this fight. They believe their fighter is the favorite. They believe their fighter will win, and they believe this fight will make them a lot of money, and it'll draw lots of revenue. On Oscar's side, probably not as confident that his fighter will win. His fighter's never been in a world title fight. He's still green. Gervonta is a seasoned, finished, polished product. And one part of me, and this is all, just my opinion. There's is Oscar been waiting, stalling this whole thing out until February 16th in hopes that the trial doesn't go Davis's way so that the fight is off. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. That's how I read into things. But part of me feels like Oscar is stalling until this court date because he doesn't really want to do this fight. I could be wrong, but that's just how I've personally read into it. And we'll see how it all unfolds, Let me see here. If PBC believes in Tank, why a rematch clause, says Sports Nerd Channel. Well, apparently, Sports Nerd, they sent back and are cool with the terms that if Ryan wins, the rematch will go on. And you see Oscar still buying time. And as he continues to buy time and find another reason here, find another reason there, it begins to confirm what my suspicions have been all along. You just don't want to do business with them. This is personal. This goes back to 2013, 2014, and your kid's the underdog, So that's just how I look at it. We got to see how it goes. I think PBC is really confident in Tank. That's why they sent the contract back and said, all right, if your guy wins, but we don't think he is, if your guy wins, we could fight on DAZN. But if Tank wins, it remains on Showtime. And they know you want to double dip. If it makes a ton of money the first time, it can make a ton of money the second time. Even though they believe Tank will win, Ryan will probably be competitive enough to where you could sell a rematch. So we'll see. Jake Smith Jr. said, stop capping. Tank won. Stop capping. Y'all thought Rolly was going to beat him. He did beat Rolly. I don't understand what we're capping about. Rick Timms III said Oscar is lollygagging, dragging his feet because he don't want to sacrifice his golden goose. Boxing and Barbecue said still waiting on Oscar. Pitbull got robbed by Tank. I disagree with that. I think Tank did enough, even with one hand, his right hand, down the stretch of that fight to pull out that decision. So, just checking some of the comments here. And that's kind of my take on it, you know. Trackman87 said Steven Espinoza clapped back on Oscar and said the fight is happening. Indeed, and I've seen that. But we're still in the, waiting and seeing phase. I know they feel very confident that fight will get done. Lupe Valencia on the inside helping to make that fight happen with Oscar, with Ryan, even when Oscar is trying to get in the way of it. And that is, that's Oscar's prerogative. If that's how he feels in this particular case, I think it is fair to say he's the one holding up a fight between Ryan and Tank. But there's a lot of personal history there between these parties, and I'm not oblivious to that. But ultimately, this would be a fight, I think, that would bring in a lot of fans and would sell about 500,000 pay-per-views, which is huge for today's sport. We'll see if it happens. I really think if we get through the 16th and Davis gets through that trial without any time having to be served, I think the fight will happen. I actually have a feeling this is what it's going to come down to, is Thursday, February 16th. So we shall see. It is speculation, but we shall see. That's my take on it. And my take on the fight itself, I favor Davis. He's the polished product. He's fought much better opposition, a myriad of styles, tall guys like Barrios, who looked good, getting the 8th round TKO at welterweight. Barrios looked good at beating up Giovanni Santiago over the weekend. Leo Santa Cruz, smaller guy coming up, but a very good fighter. Was still in his prime, even though he was coming up in weight. 4-division champ. Isak Cruz, a good pressure fighter who got underneath Tank. So Tank's seen guys who fought for titles, won titles, tall guys, shorter guys coming up in weight, moving up to fight Barrios, fighting old cagey veterans just trying to survive like Gamboa, who you'll still learn a thing or two from. And Ryan, meanwhile, has just fought, Luke Campbell and Fortuna in terms of guys that have been at or near the world title level. So it's a big gap for Tank. Tank, I think, is better at positioning and feints, better defense than Ryan, but Ryan is bigger than him. He's just as fast, maybe a little faster, and punches basically just as hard as Tank. And with that height, Tank could walk into the check hook having to cut distance eventually in that fight. But I do favor Davis to win that fight. I think you have to, based on what they've shown us this far. But would be a hell of a fight. Although I think the real Spence Crawford of the lightweight division, it isn't Haney versus Lomachenko, and it isn't Tank versus Ryan. It's Tank versus Devin. I really feel that is the fight that would be number 1 and number 2. I feel like Loma for Devin and Ryan for Tank are excellent fights. I look forward to both of them. But honestly speaking, I think if you really want to find out who's the best lightweight in the world, Gervonta and Devin got to mix it up at some point. So we'll see. Irvin Green said, I'd like to see you call fights. Your knowledgeable and ability to articulate these breakdowns is second to none. I appreciate that, man. I think Teddy Atlas, maybe a few others, Tim Bradley still got me beat, but I'm playing catch up. Those guys, having trained and fought, maybe always going to have a little bit of a step on me, but I'm doing everything I can. I appreciate that. So that about does it for me on Ryan and Tank. It's all speculative. We got to let it play out as always. Hopefully the fight gets done. I think we will arrive at an answer finally by the end of this week. So let me get here to some Oshaki. We'll still talk some Tank Ryan if that's what you guys want to talk. But a little bit of Oshaki Foster now. See that nice right hand landing against Ray Vargas. Oshaki Foster put on a very skilled performance. Great defensive performance by Oshaki Foster over the weekend. Really great shoulder roll. Fought with did Floyd Mayweather some pride with his ability to shoulder roll. And I'll refer back to the tweet I said about the fight. Oshaki Foster really put on a great defensive performance tonight and clearly deserved to become a world champion in his first title fight. That said, they say fighters get 50% better once they are a champion. That's an old one from the old trainers. I think he can grow from this performance. Vargas is a very savvy, tall, and previously undefeated rangy veteran, but it still felt like Foster left some counterpunching opportunities on the table. If he takes advantage of that even more going forward, he'll be that much tougher to beat. And before we get to that, we'll start first with all the positives. A lot of guys try the shoulder roll and don't have success with it. O'Shaquie Foster disarmed, frustrated Ray Vargas with his shoulder roll. Ray Vargas literally was hitting his shoulders and flailing and falling short all night. Ray Vargas, tall guy, long arms, good jab, doubled his jab, tripled his jab, but kept reaching with his shots. And O'Shaquie, Ray Vargas after the fight said O'Shaquie ran. O'Shaquie didn't use accessory lateral movement at all. You could have upped the work rate, like he said after the fight, and his coach was telling him in the corner in between rounds. Could have picked it up a little bit, but he wasn't running. He was taking little half steps out, half steps back in, half steps out, half steps back in. And down the stretch of the fight, he was backing Ray Vargas up more than Ray Vargas was backing him up. So that shoulder roll was really on point defensively. One of the better shoulder roll performances you'll see in that stance defensively. Very accurate. And Ray Vargas was 36-0. He was the favorite, and he came in and boxed his ears off, disarmed him, frustrated him, and clearly won the fight. But that being said, when we go back, and again, O'Shaquie said it himself. He could have stepped it up more. You see that right hand landing, and that right hand's a thing of beauty. It's knocking the sweat clean off of Ray Vargas' head. To nitpick, though, he only threw that right hand in a 12-round fight, I want to say maybe 15 to 20 times. So maybe once or twice a round, he really let that right hand go. And it was accurate the few times he threw it. And same with the left hook. He has a nice left hook. He let it go about 15 to 20 times. Outside of that, for the most part, what he was doing to Ray Vargas was just pelting him with his lead hand. It was a jab, but it was almost like he'd step on it with more conviction than a jab. Sometimes you step on the lead hand and throw it as if it's the straight coming out of the backhand. And he kept doing that to Ray Vargas. He would catch, make him miss, make him fall short, step out of range, step back in, bink, and reset. And he was able to win the fight just pecking away with that lead hand. Catch, miss, let Ray Vargas shoot off 4 or 5 shots, reach for a shot, step out of range, step back in, bink. And that won the fight, and that was good stuff. But you do want to see a fighter achieve all his potential. You want to see him pull everything out of the bag, although this was the kind of fight you don't fuck it up. You just win. You're the underdog, fighting in front of a lot of Mexican fans. This guy's 36-0. So just get the job done, and he did do that, clearly. But at the same time, he left some counterpunching opportunities on the table. There was more there, and he agrees with that. And if he's ever going to fight a Shakur Stevenson, guys like that, he will need to step on that gas and take more. Even Oscar Valdez. He has a great style for Oscar Valdez. Valdez will struggle with that defense mightily. But will O'Shaquie make him pay enough with those straight right hands and those check hooks, or will he just fight like he did against Ray Vargas, and that'll give a guy like Valdez chance to out-hustle him? Emmanuel Navarrete just moved up to 130. These guys, they're not going to be able to touch him cleanly punch for punch, but they could out-hustle him if Shock doesn't pick up the pace a little bit going forward, fighting guys who are even better than Ray Vargas. But still, he did his thing, took care of that, won that fight cleanly. But there's something to build upon, and his coach agreed with that, and he agreed with that. So that was my assessment of O'Shaquie Foster. He's got the style and everything to beat a Oscar Valdez, beat a Navarrete, but I do think those guys will make him work more, let his hands go more, open it up more than was the case with Ray Vargas. Ray Vargas was just so wildly inaccurate that Shock could let him throw 10, 12 punches before responding with a single left hand, and that would score him the round because, 1 out of 1 beats 0 for 13. So shout out to Shock. I had a feeling he would pull this off. At the last second, I tweeted something that my head says Vargas, but my gut says Foster. And I said that because on paper, logically, at 36-0, having won 2 world titles, fought much better competition, Vargas on paper was the favorite. But my gut heading into it, having watched Foster on tape, showed me he was very capable, he was athletic, and a good boxer. And he jumped up 3 or 4 levels of competition and got it done anyways. So good stuff for O'Shaquie Foster, but a performance to build on, not a perfect performance, something he could build on and tune it up more and more as he goes forward. So yeah, man, we're not going too crazy today. We're only 25 minutes in, and that's about it, man. Jamel Farid said, great commentary. I appreciate that, man. Salute FightHype and all in the chat. I appreciate that, man. Let me see what else. Pugilism said, Foster, good sound boxing. Why isn't FightHype hyping up 140 Matias versus Ponce? Industry hasn't forgiven Matias, and they seem scared of promoting Matias themselves. He's got a potential to be a Puerto Rican all-time great, says Pugilism. I like Subriel Matias. I don't hold it against him what happened to Maxime Dadashev when Dadashev, tragically died that night and gave me a lesson on how tough fighters truly are that I'll never forget. Maxime Dadashev fought until he died before he touched the canvas, and that'll never escape me. That some of these guys are so tough that you'll kill them before you knock them down. Or not. That was the case with Dadashev that night. God rest his soul. But no, you can't hold that against Matias. Matias was doing his job. Matias comes from a really, really rough murder high background in his neighborhood in Puerto Rico. I've spoke to him about that. He's an exciting fighter. Terrence Crawford once famously said, well, famously to me because I always remember it, he once said, if Subriel Matias ever got a jab, he'd be a problem. But Matias, he did lose a fight in recent history. I don't think he's technically sound enough. I don't think he has enough technical wrinkles to become an all-time great from Puerto Rico like Cotto or Trinidad or Wilfred Benitez or Wilfredo Gomez, but he's a player. I mean, he's a dangerous guy. He's a puncher, and he's an exciting style to watch on TV. I honestly have to break down Ponce to give you a better opinion on the fight. I'm familiar with Subriel Matias, but I have to get more familiar with Ponce, and that fight's in 2 weeks. It's not this Saturday. If that fight was this Saturday, I'd already had my tape broken down, ready to give you a prediction on the fight. You'll have to wait until next week to see who I think wins Subriel Matias and Ponce. But no, I like Subriel Matias. Happy you brought him up. FightHype is the GOAT for boxing news, says JV12. Indeed, sir, and we're a whole team. My man Ron Goodall out here, Hans Themistode, Rockman McGilberry, Frankie Villafy Media, Nick Noonan in Australia, and on and on and on and on, and of course Big BT, the captain of the ship. So we appreciate the shout out, man. Mike said, rather watch Sean analyze by himself than with Welterweight podcast. I love the Welterweight podcast. I still look forward to hopping on there throughout the year, time to time. So I think those guys are amazing with or without me. But thank you, brother, for liking it. Inca said, Zittel, the Frankenstein of boxing. Do you mean physically, the look, like the way my face looks, or what do you mean by that, my man? I'm just curious. Inca13, appreciate the comment. Zittel is Frankenstein's love child. Okay, I think you're getting at a physical appearance here. Bill says, Ryan's going to smoke Tank, too big, fast, and powerful. He is bigger than him, he is fast, and he is powerful. But skills do pay the bills, too. And little subtle things that don't sell. The knockout highlight reels for both of these guys is what's going to sell the fight. But what wins the fight might be the stuff that doesn't sell on highlight reels. Feints, positioning. Feints and positioning might win this fight for Gervonta Davis. He may bait Tank. I think Tank's going to give away rounds to Ryan. He often gives away rounds. When Lomachenko does it, we call it downloading data, right? So he downloads data. Crawford loses early rounds too. Some guys, they just take their time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And where was I going with this? As he's giving away rounds, he's giving away rounds, but as he's giving away rounds, what I think Tank is going to want to get a look at with Ryan, he's going to want to bait that check hook out a couple of times in the first half of the fight. He's going to want to take a look at it and go, okay, that's how it comes out, at that angle, at that speed, okay. And he's going to want to take a couple looks at it, and through feints, try to bait it out, and then through positioning, understanding where to place your feet in the high guard, like he kind of had to learn on the fly against Barrios, how to cut that distance against a tall guy. And, just feints and positioning could wind up winning this fight for Tank. The stuff that jumps out at us, speed, punching power, they both got it. Knockouts, they both got knockouts on the highlight reel. But Tank, being in all these title fights, having to deal with even a guy like Hector Luis Garcia, who has good feints, who throws good, who's a good boxer, a savvy fighter. That stuff raises your IQ fight to fight. And there's a big gap in experience and in level of opposition that didn't matter for Ray Vargas. So Shockey Foster got the job done anyways. Ryan Vargas might do the same, or Ryan Garcia might do the same. But I think with the talent, see, the difference was, despite all of Vargas's talent, and he was moving up in weight, despite all of his, despite of the resume on paper, 36-0, if you watch the tape, you knew Foster might have actually been the more talented fighter. So his talent could trump the experience and the gap in experience and level of opposition. The problem with Ryan and Tank is the talent is pretty even. The hand speed, the punching power, although the size obviously goes to Ryan. But when the talent's about even, that's when experience and savvy will tell the day again. And that's kind of what I see happening in this fight, is they're both really explosive guys. They both have great hand speed and punching power. Ryan's edge is his natural physical size, and Tank's edge is feints, positioning, nuance, the savvy, having fought a myriad of styles and guys who have won titles. So we'll have to see. Let's see. Don't ever compare Tank to Crawford. Bud dominates all his fights easy. Tank damn near losing all his fights before he gets knocked out, says Inca13. I do think Crawford, to this point, is a greater fighter than Tank, clearly. But Tank's not that far off. Crawford, to me, has been a top 5 pound-for-pound guy for years. And Tank, to me, has been a top 10 pound-for-pound a couple years. So he's not far behind. So let's see. Both guys, honestly... for as great as Crawford's been, with his skills and whatnot, his resume could still use another signature win or two. So it's not like he's just, but that undisputed at 140, he was the lineal, having beaten Ricky Burns at 35, and some solid wins like Sean Porter, of course, at welterweight. But neither one has got an Oscar De La Hoya resume, you know what I mean, or a Floyd Mayweather resume. So they both could definitely use some work. Foster versus Hector Garcia. Who you got, says Jeremiah. I'll give an edge to Foster. I think he's just a step ahead athletically, and I think his defense is a little tighter than Garcia. But Garcia going to let his hands go. But Garcia not a big puncher. Garcia would let his hands go in that fight. I give the edge to Foster. I think Foster defensively is a step ahead of Hector Garcia, but Garcia is southpaw, more active. Probably a better style going up against Shockey Foster than Ray Vargas. But I will give the edge to Foster. Damn, FightHype saying Ora Mayorga resume for that matter. You're kind of right, man. Ricardo Mayorga knocked out Vernon Forrest. That's a better win than Terrence Crawford or Tank Davis or Errol Spence or just about anybody right now has in boxing, if we're just being honest. He knocked out Vernon Forrest when Vernon Forrest dominated twice the pound-for-pound king at the time, Sugar Shane Mosley. And actually, we're gonna have a little Guinea bias here. Ricardo Mayorga also won a lot. Everyone remembers Ricardo Mayorga was the undisputed welterweight champion, but people forget because Fernando Vargas, Javier Castillejo kind of got fucked out of it. But people forget Ricardo Mayorga was the WBC super welterweight champion when he beat Michele Pricherio from Italy. I only remember that because I remember when I was really first getting into boxing, I'd go, are there any Italian boxers by any chance? And I searched Italy, and there he was, Michele Pricherio, and he actually had a fight lined up with Mayorga for the WBC. And the main event that night, it was a Don King card, was Hassim Rahman and Monty Barrett. That fight was awful. And I actually ordered the card to watch Pricherio, and he got his ass whooped by Ricardo Mayorga. So anyways, I'm a long-winded cat. Ricardo Mayorga, 4-time champion in 2 divisions. Ricardo Mayorga actually did what Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford haven't done. He was undisputed welterweight champion. So shout out to you, Ricardo Mayorga, wherever you are in some street. Unfortunately, probably not doing too well in some street somewhere in Nicaragua, but shout out to you. Bill says a good big man almost always beats a good small man, and Ryan might end up at 147. 154 the question. The question is, Tank a great little guy? I think I'm leaning towards he's closer to being a great little guy than just a good little guy. From what my eyes told me, at 130, Tank was great. Tank was great at 130. 135, he's, that remains to be seen. Let's see how a Ryan Garcia fight goes. Let's see how maybe a Shakur or a Devin Haney fight goes. Yeah, at 130, the Pedraza win, it's not like he has this great resume at 130, but my eyes told me at 130 pounds at 5'5", where no one's going to really be towering over him, where he's really going to be fighting guys his height and his size. I think Tank at 130, eye test wise, is kind of an ATG, kind of an all-time great. Would I have picked him against Floyd? No. Would I have picked him against Pacquiao at 130? No. Would I have picked him against Hector Camacho at 130 pounds? Good fight, but no. But I do think that he was great at 130. I love Morales and Barrera, but the physicality of Tank, the kind of punching power he has. As much as I love Morales and Barrera, they might have lost to Tank Davis at 130 or beaten him. Those would have been pick 'em kind of fights. But Davis, talent-wise, the resume didn't quite get there at 130. To me, he was pretty special at 130 pounds. So we'll see if he's a great little man beating a good bigger man in Ryan Garcia. No, you're wrong. One SSS said Sean Ricardo was unified. He only had 2 belts. Undisputed at 147 was Corey Spinks and Zab Judah. No. One SSS. I appreciate your comment. Look up the box rec. Corey Spinks, he got the undisputed crown for. You know what? You might be right. Because did Spinks already have the IB? No. Spinks got. You know what? We'll settle this. I'm pretty certain Spinks beat Mayorga for all 3 belts. WBC, WBA, IBF. And this is before having WBO was needed to be considered undisputed. Corey Spinks didn't have the WBO and Zab Judah didn't have the WBO. But Corey Spinks got the 3 belts from Mayorga, who got him from Vernon Forrest, who got him from unifying his IBF belt against Shane. You might be right because... No, I'm pretty sure he had the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF Mayorga. Let's check. See, this is fun. I appreciate your comment because we get to have fun with it. Ricardo, I'm pretty sure though, brother, that Mayorga had the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF. But you might be right. If I'm right, I will eat my crow and say you are correct. One SSS. Let's see who deserves to really have his morning side chat. Should it be me or one SSS? We're about to find out. Because I know he won the WBA against Six Heads Lewis. Yep, he wins the WBA against Six Heads. Oh, you're right. WBC, WBA against Vertical. No! One SSS. No, you were right. I'm a man who will admit when he's wrong. One SSS. Salute to you, sir. You were correct. Mayorga was not undisputed. He was unified. He was lineal. I was so wrong. I talked all that greasy shit. Now I'm wrong. I apologize. He was the WBA, WBC champ. But when the IBF came on the line with Corey Spinks won that fight, and then he lost those belts to Zab Judah. And then just to go down memory lane for a second, this kind of sucked for Zab Judah for Floyd Mayweather, because he beats Zab Judah. Zab Judah beats Corey Spinks to become undisputed. Get out of here, ad. Zab Judah beats Corey Spinks to become undisputed, and then he drops the ball against Carlos Baldomir, and Floyd winds up only fighting for the IBF belt when they fought. When the fight was, Floyd and Zab Judah was signed before Zab actually lost to Baldomir, and it was supposed to be Floyd moving up in weight to fight for the undisputed title, and he kind of got fucked out of that, and that sucks, but Mayweather Judah was still a big fight. Anyway, one SSS, you win, bruh. You win it. And Corey beat Pichadillo for the vacant IBF. You know what? While we're at it then, let's go ahead and give... This is the most shine Michele Pichadillo will ever have in a long time, so let's give him one last shout-out. There he is, Michele Pichadillo. And Spinks won that IBF title off of him, and then just to show you, let me redeem myself with my boxing knowledge, one SSS, because at least I was correct in remembering that he did lose the vacant WBC super welterweight title fight with Ricardo Mayorga in Chicago, where Monty Barrett and Rockmont. So I still know my boxing, but I did fuck up on the Mayorga undisputed thing. I got well-informed supporters and fans here at Fight Hype. They know their boxing so well that they can correct me. So, Barrios versus Broner for September, says Emerson. That'd be funny. Corey Spinks was a sweet boxer, says Inca13. He was a sweet boxer, and honestly, I kind of felt like he got robbed when I was watching that fight live against Jermaine Taylor. HBO, they were the worst with Jermaine Taylor, and I love HBO. I'm an HBO fan for life. I love Jim Lampley, but man, was he biased for Jermaine Taylor. And I remember halfway through that Corey Spinks-Jermaine Taylor fight, HBO literally just stopped calling the fight. And they started just being like, Jermaine's winning. You know, he's not throwing punches or landing punches, but he's winning. This fight sucks, but Jermaine's going to win. And then they just gave the fight to Jermaine, and Jermaine, that may have been his last successful title defense. He may have lost to Kelly Pavlik that last fight, but anyway, the dude who corrected me, I haven't even seen him in the chat since he corrected me. He bounced, like he dropped the mic on me. Whew. Would I pick Tank over Genaro Hernandez at 130? Asked L-Dub Boxing. I would have. Definitely the Genaro that Floyd fought kind of in the last fight of his career. Yeah, I think Tank would have beat Genaro Hernandez, but Genaro was a really good 130-pound fighter for a long time. Shout out to Prada Pierre to the $2. Floyd Mayweather was in talks to fight Corey Spinks, says Prada Pierre. Thank you, brother, for the super chat. And actually, Dougie Fisher told me a funny story about that. I think it was after the first Zab Judah Corey Spinks fight. Floyd was in attendance at the Mandalay Bay. He showed up to the post-fight, and I guess they even posed for pictures that Floyd was going to move up to 47 and fight Spinks for undefeated, and then it didn't come off. But yeah, you're right, Prada Pierre. I heard that from people who were covering boxing at that time, that fight was just about to be signed, and they even did a photo op at the Mandalay Bay following the first Judah Spinks fight. Pugilism said, man, I despise Lampley and Merchant. It's rare I'll agree with Lampley or Merchant. More so, Lampley was always the trainers and former fighters on HBO that held it down for me. But Pugilism, man, Jim gets too much hate, man. Yeah, he was biased for some fights towards the end, really. In the 1990s, the early 2000s, the late 80s, second to none. He was and same with Larry, man. Their storytelling, their intellect, how articulate they were. They were on another level from most sports commentators. Towards the end, everyone just wanted to kind of peg them as the old racist white guys. I think that's too one-sided. They were great. Just go back and watch the most classic fights they called. They were exceptional on the call and educated, man. They it wasn't just hard right hand right there, and they're trading punches like girls trade selfies on Instagram. It was highbrow stuff. It was highbrow like the rest of HBO's programming. They treated boxing like they treated their television series. Like, this is for intelligent adults, not catering to the masses. If you didn't know your boxing, you better learn watching an HBO telecast. But I get you. I understand, though, especially towards the end. Larry ultimately was wrong about Floyd. I even asked him about that once. But you're going to be wrong sometimes. You're not going to get every single thing right. Pugilism said, I didn't even agree with George Foreman sometimes, but always liked Manuel Stewart. I think Lampley was best of the best with Ahmad Rashad. Was on Best of the Best with Ahmad Rashad. I like Lampley on Best of the Best movie. I never seen that movie, and I love Ahmad Rashad. He's the best, courtside reporter. Not like he was a hard-hitting guy. Like, he would, ask a tough question that you didn't. But he got so much out of Michael Jordan and all the NBA on NBC era. Ahmad Rashad was a standard in journalism and in class. Let's see here. Humberto Zepeda said, why would stall the fight? If Tank goes to jail, the fight won't happen regardless. Even better, he would promote the fight and then it won't. I'm just reading your comment. Jermell Charlo versus Floyd at 154. Who wins? Asked Michael H. Jermell got all the talent in the world at 154. Great size, explosive, fast, can fight and punch going backwards, has made guys twitches on the ground from jabs to the body. Jermell Charlo is a solidified all-time great at 154. You could put him up there with De La Hoya and Floyd and Tommy Hearns and Winky Wright and Terry Norris and on and on and on and on and on. That said, I got to give it to Floyd because Jermell, he'll go in the first Castano fight, in both Harrison fights, even though he knocked out Harrison late in that fight, in the middle rounds of that fight, Jermell didn't throw a lot of punches. Jermell, in a number of fights, that work rate, it almost cost him that first Castano fight. It did cost him the first Harrison fight. Jermell doesn't fight at a crazy pace. He changed that a little bit in the Castano fight, but styles make fights. Castano's constantly coming forward. Floyd isn't going to fight like that. I don't think Jermell threw enough punches, and I think trying to play the boxer-puncher style against Floyd, good luck. Jermell definitely is bigger, stronger, more explosive than Floyd, has the athleticism to compete with Floyd athletically, but I just think he didn't throw enough punches per round more times than not, and you're just not going to beat Floyd. The guys that got close to beating Floyd, Maidana in the first fight, Jose Luis Castillo, Oscar in a few rounds that he did win, the 4 rounds he won in their fight, it was by hustling. Augie Sanchez, my former amateur trainer, who fought Floyd 4 times in the amateur and just beat him once out of that 4 times, he told me that's the only way you're going to beat Floyd Mayweather. You have to out-hustle him. Hustle. And Jermell Charlo, that's not his style. He's a boxer-puncher. I think that Floyd would have won that fight by a decision. Wouldn't have been exciting, but I think Floyd would have won a decision against Jermell Charlo. Harrison versus Charlo was a robbery, said Mastermind 96. I'm not saying Charlo didn't deserve to win that fight, but that fight got away from him because he didn't throw a lot of punches, and that would be a problem against Floyd Mayweather. Prada Pierre, thank you again for the super chat. Prada Pierre says, I don't see how Jermell isn't on the pound-for-pound list, shaking my head. I agree. He's definitely a pound-for-pounder. I thought he had the best performance in boxing last year when he knocked out Brian Castano in May. That was the picture-perfect boxer-puncher display. I believe he's pound-for-pound top 10, no question. But to answer your question, why wouldn't he be? Super welterweight isn't a talent-rich division. It's a good division. I like it, but guys like Jason Rosario aren't looked upon as particularly strong world title holders when he beat them. Tony Harrison, he had already been stopped by Willie Nelson and Jarrett Hurd by the time he beat Charlo. Charlo, when he turns the tables and knocks him out, still in a competitive fight where Harrison controlled the middle rounds of that fight. Harrison, it's a good win, but outside of Harrison getting a questionable decision over Jermell himself in that first fight, he doesn't have standout wins and has fallen short when he fought at that level. So Rosario and Harrison, and then Castano's a good fighter. A lot of people thought he beat Lara instead of got that draw, but Castano, less than 20 professional fights, not super decorated. That might be what they're penalizing Jermell for. I think, unfairly. I think undisputed in all the title defenses he has and winning most of them by knockout, he's clearly top 10 pound for pound for me. But that might be what it is the voters don't look at super welterweight as one of the best divisions in boxing. And also a lot of people maybe thought that Castano deserved to win that first fight against Charlo. The Boot Louisiana, and I've seen you post this a few times, sorry, just now getting to it. I would like to see Ryan win, but Gervonta's IQ, patience, defense, and footwork will most likely get him a knockout over Ryan in the later rounds, my opinion. I agree with you. I totally agree with you, the Boot Louisiana. But I don't count Garcia out. Definitely a live dog. And Prada Pierre, another $2. Thank you, Prada Pierre. I appreciate that, brother. Prada Pierre with another super chat. Thank you, man. Says Jermell has a 100% knockout ratio in his wins for undisputed. I'm with you. I'm a Jermell Charlo guy. My favorite style in boxing is the boxer puncher. Going all the way back to Sugar Ray Robinson, who perfected that style, on to Hearns and De La Hoya, and on and on and on. I love me a great boxer puncher, and that's who Jermell Charlo is. So I'm with you. He is top 10 pound for pound. He is an all-time great at 154. And actually, not just the KO ratio in title fights, but outside of Castano going the distance that first fight, Harrison going the distance that first fight, Austin Trout went the distance in Los Angeles some years ago against Jermell. But outside of that, he knocks these guys out. He knocked Lubin out, knocked Rosario out. You know, he Charles Hatley back in the day knocked him out, knocked Castaño out. He usually wins these fights by knockout. Knocked Harrison out. So, yeah, I like Jermell Charlo. You're barking up the right tree with the Jermell Charlo praise. Horacio Scholl keeps posting it, so I'm going to read it, brother. Gervonta fangirls. Tank going to kill Ryan. But Tank couldn't kill or hurt a 5'2" level Pitbull Cruz. I hear what you're saying, Horacio. If Pitbull Cruz could go 12 rounds and make Gervonta sweat, what could a talent like Ryan Garcia do? But styles do make fights, and Pitbull, Tank hurt his hand down the stretch of that fight. No excuses. He still pulled it out. But Esau Cruz, because he's a pressure fighter, and maybe because he's from Mexico and he's a pressure fighter, underrated defense. He short guy that gets underneath you, and he really keeps a tight high guard. And one thing Esau Cruz does really well, tucks his chin. He tucks that chin. He's already a small target you're punching at, but then he keeps the good high guard up, and then he tucks that chin so low. His chin is in his chest. Sorry, guys, I'm dealing with a cold. And that made him a little tough to hit against Tank, especially with the uppercut. It looks like he's going to walk into that uppercut, but that chin is tucked in there, and those gloves are up real tight, real good in a high guard. Not all high guards are created equal, and Esau Cruz has a good high guard. I don't think Ryan Garcia is as good defensively as Esau Cruz. Esau Cruz gets underneath you and keeps it very tight and tucks that chin. Ryan Garcia keeps that chin up. I mean, he's the opposite of how a guy like Triple G or Esau Cruz keeps that chin down. Bernard Hopkins in a different stance, not fighting out of the high guard like Triple G or Esau Cruz. Bernard Hopkins kept that chin tucked beautifully, and Ryan Garcia does not. So that could be a big issue for Ryan. Pugilism. Well said, pugilism. Beautifully said. Esau Cruz has an armadillo guard. Just watch an armadillo. That's his defense. Well said. Thank you, brother. J7 says, I'm calling it right now. Stanionis can upset Virgil Ortiz. He can upset Virgil Ortiz, but he won't upset Virgil Ortiz. I'm sorry, brother. That was a very close fight with Butayev, and Butayev is no Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, those are two trains colliding. Two explosive trains. I like Stanionis' explosiveness. He throws every punch with conviction. Not slow. He's a come-forward white guy from Europe, but he's not slow. He's got good explosiveness and speed and snap on his punches. But he is a little straight up and down. He is coming forward in a straight line, and Virgil will do that too, but Virgil's a little taller than him. Virgil with both hands. Stanionis is a good puncher, but Virgil's a better puncher. And most important, two very important things for Virgil, he's got a better jab. When two trains are coming at each other, whoever can jab to kind of dictate as they're coming forward is going to dictate range and get off first and dictate the action. Virgil has a better jab than Stanionis, and he has a great double jab, a power double jab out of that high guard. And he fought Mean Machine Kaviaskis, who fights in basically the same style and from the same country as Stanionis. I think Stanionis, undefeated, younger than Mean Machine, is coming with more intensity even than Mean Machine did, who already maybe had a little something knocked off of him having got knocked out by Crawford, but he was still a live body in there. Hurt Virgil. Virgil dropped him 4 times, got him out of there. But Virgil's seen this style before. He's got the better jab. Stanionis is a strong guy, but he's a little stronger, a little bigger, and punches a little harder in both hands, along with the better jab. Having faced this style before, I got Ortiz all day against Stanionis. And what I'm hoping for, if Crawford and Spence can't come to the table finally, and it looks like they may not, is go ahead and make Crawford and Virgil then. They're already and I told you guys about this before Crawford met with Golden Boy, that was the play. If Spence and Crawford can't happen, fine then. DAZN's hopefully still desperate to actually make some kind of wave in America because they haven't really been able to outside of getting Canelo Alvarez. So they might be willing to give Terrence that big juicy guarantee he's been looking for alongside De La Hoya. Maybe DAZN could help line Golden Boy's pockets. They've lost billions of dollars already on shit fights, so why not lose money on a great fight, right? Or maybe even make it back if all the Mexican fans show up and all the American fans show up and support that fight at the gate and on pay-per-view. So I feel like the play, I guess Crawford could sign a 2-fight deal with Golden Boy if the Spence fight can't happen, and he could stay busy, get an easy payday against Alexis Roca while Virgil takes care of business with Stanionis, and then they could fight for the WBO and the WBA, and if Spence can't return to 147, maybe the WBC says you guys could fight for our vacant belt, and that's the welterweight unification we get in 2023. At this point, that might be more realistic to hope for than Spence and Crawford. I'll take either one. So, Prada Pierre said, Usyk got placed number 6 pound for pound when he went undisputed in an unknown cruiserweight division. Stanionis don't have physical control to keep Virgil honest. So, Prada Pierre pointing out what he feels is some hypocrisy that Jermell Charlo can't get into the top 10 pound for pound because not the strongest division. But then cruiserweight, a historically weak division. Really, the only guys that come to mind at cruiserweight are Evander Holyfield and David Haye outside of Usyk. And he got all the way to number 6. Well, Prada, I hear you. And again, I'm with you. I think Jermell has been underrated in his ranking there. But I think maybe part of it was Usyk was in a tournament where it was fast-moving, and he's able to accumulate the belts against the other champions in a, 12, 18-month span. Meanwhile, Charlo, he grabs that first belt in, 16 against John Jackson. He doesn't unify until 2020, 4 years later, and then he gets that final belt last year. So it was 6 years to get to undisputed, whereas a guy like Canelo or Usyk got it done basically within a year or so. That might be, again, what they're giving extra points to Usyk is he's fighting the other top guys in the division, bang, 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 and getting it done. Jermell, it was a long, drawn-out process. But they both arrive at the same place, undisputed, right? But I'm just trying to be objective and not just be quick to vilify, everyone in the media and double standards. Here we go, and let me try and assess what logic it is that would lead them to come to those conclusions. Prada Pierre. Stanionis has looked good so far. Overall quality of opposition has been weak. What did Crawford do at 147, says Don Jenkins. Well, remember, Don, 147's hot off the heels of what he did at 35 and 40. And, Kell Brook is washed, but it's a nice name on the record, especially after he destroyed Amir Khan, I guess, a completely washed Amir Khan. But I got to stop using terms like that for guys that risk getting hit in the face or do get hit in the face so I can sit on my ass and talk about them getting hit in the face. Not washed. Kell Brook past it, not in his prime anymore. Well past his prime. Amir Khan well past his prime. I don't want to call these guys washed. But Kell Brook still winds up as a nice name on the black and white, on the paper. Khan, decent name on the paper. And then Sean Porter's the actual pretty good win. And so is Jeff Horn's an underrated win because I feel like people cried bloody murder on that Pacquiao fight a little bit too much. Pacquiao was not sharp that night in Australia, got put on his heels early, and, didn't win the close decision on the road. It happens. I don't think Jeff Horn got a robbery, so I actually give Crawford some credit for how he just completely dominated Jeff Horn, and that was prime Crawford to me. Crawford's still in his prime. He's still one of the best in the game, but I feel like Crawford's true peak was that Jeff Horn fight. His legs were on a different level than they're on right now. He can't glide around the ring like he could in 2017, 2016 anymore. Soji Azul said, washed is low-key disrespectful. I hear you. It is. And that's why I'm going to take it out of the vocab when discussing fighters. Billy D and the Hoodoos says, Sean, I gotta run. I watch a few of these boxing live streams, and you're right at the top. No doubt. Thank you, sir. Blant Benavides gonna rock. Thank you, Billy D, and I'm happy you feel that way. I hope to have you back in the chat soon. I'll take a few more. And then we'll get out of here, man. Then we'll enjoy our Sunday. So here we go. Who do I think? Dane Sampson. Good to see you, Dane. I haven't got a chance to read any of your comments yet. Good to see you, brother. Always supporting me in the chat. Thank you, man. Your question is, who did I think won Pacquiao versus Bradley? Won. I actually went back. Respect, Don Jenkins. Thank you, brother. You have a great Sunday. Stay blessed. So I actually felt that fight. I scored it with the volume off once. I felt it was a draw, perhaps. Pacquiao fought sometimes 2.5 minutes out of the 3 minutes in those rounds, not throwing punches. He really fought in spurts in that fight. And Tim Bradley would touch him with the jab, double jab, flurry to the body. Nothing significant, nothing hurting Manny Pacquiao or getting his attention, but the judges are paying attention to that while Pacquiao is inactive for 2/3 of the round. And that really unimpressive but consistent work from Bradley got him rounds on the cards where the crowd thought those spurts from Pacquiao was enough. And when they weren't, when I went back and scored it, I could see Bradley pulling out a draw. I didn't see him winning 7 rounds and getting the decision. And Top Rank, because of that dubious card, winds up getting 3 fights for the price of 1 out of it. Go figure. But I did feel like with the volume off, Tim might have deserved a draw in that first fight, and it was not the robbery where he deserved all those death threats that he got after the fight. It was a close fight, and Pacquiao was very unimpressive by his standards that night. Out of their 3 fights, I thought fight number 2 was by far the best. I don't think any of their 3 fights were really great, but that second fight was good. That was a good fight. That was the fight where Tim Bradley, if you guys remember, knocked Manny off his feet with a right hand. He was almost trying to do the Marquez game plan because Marquez had knocked Manny out in between their first and second fights. And that was the most entertaining fight out of the 3, and Manny clearly beat Bradley. And then in the third fight, Bradley with Teddy Atlas tried to just box and got dropped twice, and that was the last fight of his career, I believe. So yeah, thank you, man. Can you break down Ruiz versus Wilder if it happens? Says All Smoke 05. Absolutely. Absolutely. Bull said you're a bit off on memory today, but you're lively. Appreciate it, Bull. It does happen. You know, you're always going off top. You smoke. I was off on my man got me on the Ricardo Mayorga. I could have swore Mayorga had the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF, but he actually lost once the IBF was on the line to Corey Spinks. Shout out to that man. Dirty Sanchez says, I'm a cuck. Dirty, I would suggest you stop doing that to yourself. Have some dignity for yourself as a man. Cut that out. You know what I'm saying? Read the Bible. I'm just do you though, man. Thank you for being in the chat. Sean, I know you probably don't have time to stream, but what got you into boxing? I'll get to that in a second. Prada Pierre killing it with the super chats. Thank you, brother. I'm going to be able to eat lunch today because of you. For free. Stanionis must circle Virgil's left and defend the jab. Prada, is that his style, though? Is that the kind of guy? Is that the kind of fight Stanionis is going to win? Circling to his left and parrying the jab? And maybe you're right. I mean, you're not asking him to be Sugar Ray Robinson and counter, and you're not asking him to be Floyd Mayweather and counterpunch him to death, but I don't think that's Stanionis, man. He's a pressure fighter. He gonna come and get you. I don't think he's gonna turn you and look out for the. He's gonna fight. He's gonna get in there and fight. And I don't think that's how you beat Virgil Ortiz. I think a style like Crawford is how you beat Virgil Ortiz, picking him apart through that high guard, punching in between his punches. I think Stanionis is gonna meet him head on, and Virgil is gonna be the slightly bigger guy with the bigger guns and the better jab. We'll see. Maybe he'll take your advice, Prada Pierre. Adam Beanie Smith said, Sean, I just tuned in from Scotland. When is the fight being announced? Sorry if you went over 100 times. It's funny how Tank leaves Floyd and now leaks about announcements are dropping. Adam, you check earlier in the stream, please. I kind of went over that. And basically, I think we might finally get a real answer after the 16th. I think the 16th Tank's trial, if he gets through that with no time or nothing, then I think Oscar will have ran out of stalling tactics and he'll have to make the fight because Ryan wants the fight, because Ryan wants to win the fight, but he also wants to make life-changing money. There's probably upwards of close to $10 million on the table for Ryan right now. That's the kind of money where you don't have to fight again in your life. So I think Ryan wants it. I think Tank wants it. I think PBC wants it. And I do think Oscar is dragging his feet until February 16th to see what happens in this trial a little bit. Because, rewind earlier in the stream, but this all goes back to 10 years ago between these parties. There's bad blood there. It's not water under the bridge, if you ask me. And if this fight doesn't happen, that's mainly why. So we'll see if we get out of this week, get past the 16th, and Ryan and Tank indeed goes down. I'm starting to think even if it does go down, it won't go down April 15th. Maybe I'm wrong, but April 15th is what, 10 weeks out, 9 weeks out. They usually like to build up a pay-per-view. I know it's rumored in the business that if this fight gets finalized, they will have a city-to-city tour, New York, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, cities like that. We shall see. I think we really do get our answer by the end of this week. I do think that. Who wins, Jamal versus Canelo? Canelo all day. Jamal's been out for 2 years. And Canelo, even though he slowed down last year in 2022, I still got to favor Canelo Alvarez. Jamal's never fought above 160. Yeah. There's no way you could really favor Jamal right now if that fight got signed tomorrow and Jamal had to face Canelo next, coming off 2 years. And Yo, Shaggy, what's up, says Manny Cruz. What's up to you too, my friend? Southpaw TV says Ryan wants the money, not the actual fight. Fight will never happen. Raimundo Rendon Jr. says, you look like my cousin. I look like your primo must look like Ashton Kutcher a little bit. I'm hoping. I'm hoping your cousin isn't super ugly and that wasn't a diss. I'm just saying. One SSS said, I will read your comments. You schooled me that Mayorga was only WBC, WBA, didn't have the IBF strap. And he says, respectfully, Sean, Tank's going to jail. That remains to be seen. We shall see. Prada Pierre said Errol Spence can step to his right, defend the jab and pressure. But Prada, look what you just said. Errol Spence. Errol Spence is a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, unified welterweight champion, Olympian. And Errol Spence in the Mikey Garcia fight already showed us he has an assortment of boxing skills. And Errol, he'll keep it long. He'll stay on you in that high guard, jab you to death, kill your body. But then he can keep it long, step behind, and pivot off a little bit, even drop that lead hand here and there, and do a little shoulder roll here and there. I don't think Staniosa's got in his bag what Errol Spence has in his bag. Errol's longer than him, has a better jab than him, has better defense than him. Two different levels. I like Stanionis. He's a contender at welterweight. He's a top 10 welterweight, but Errol's difference between a top 10 welterweight and a top 5-ish pound-for-pound practitioner, But I love everything you're contributing, Prada Pierre. I do. Platboy Plays with the thank you, brother, for the super chat. Says you got a brilliant boxing mind. Much respect. Thank you, man. I try, brother. I've been around this sport more than half my life. Had a couple amateur fights back in the day. Been around some great trainers and some great fighters who've been kind enough to let me absorb from them. Try to read the books from guys like George Kimball and Burt Sugar, and so I appreciate that, man. Oh, ES stood for Stanionis. My bad, Prada Pierre. I thought you were talking about Errol Spence. I'm like, yeah. Stood for Stanionis. My bad. So, Prada, are you picking? No. You're not picking Stanionis. I believe you said earlier you're picking Virgil, but you feel there's a couple of realistic things Stanionis can do to pull this off against Virgil. And you're not asking him to be Floyd Mayweather, but step to your left, move to your left a little bit, and parry against the jab, first and foremost. Prada Pierre knows his boxing. Mastermind 96 with a random comment. James Toney, greatest fighter ever. He ain't the greatest fighter ever, but I fucking love James Lights Out Toney. Last night during the Super Bowl, when Kadarius Toney for the Chiefs kept scoring touchdowns or running, I was like, Kadarius Lights Out Toney, baby! I kept trying to put my James Toney references. So I'm with you. I love James Toney. Raimundo Rendon Jr. said, you just earned more respect from me knowing that you had fights. Shout out. Yeah, I did. I had 3 of them. I lost 1, 2. This was in 2006, 2007. First 2 fights in 06, last one in 07. And I never learned head movement. That stuff, my reflexes didn't get, my defense was just high guard, catch. I'd accidentally get out of the way of shots sometimes, but no method to it. Just, you kind of instinctually moving around sometimes, but I appreciate that, man. Angel Calixto with the super chat, and Victor Blast. Victor Blast saying you and Showbiz are my favorite unbiased channels. Thank you, Victor Blast. I appreciate your support. And me and Showbiz got to get it in on Undisputed soon, man. Showbiz plays the new boxing game Undisputed. I play the new boxing game Undisputed. He seems like a really nice guy. I'd be down to play some Undisputed with Showbiz the adult. Maybe we could build that up like a pay-per-view fight. But back to Angel Calixto with the what's the held up on Spence Thurman. Your guess is kind of as good as mine. We'll see. I don't know. I don't want to pretend to know. That fight was being rumored for April. That's not happening. I don't know. It could be money. It could be Errol saying, look, I said I'd never fight this guy, so make sure the zeros are really nice if I'm going to take a fight with a guy I never really wanted to give the opportunity because he didn't give me the opportunity when I wanted to fight him, and I wanted to return the favor and tell him, fuck off. Now that you're hungry for a big payday and you want to fight for the titles, now you want to fight me. But when you had the titles and I was hungry for a title shot, you didn't want to fight me. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's scheduling with Showtime. Maybe it's I don't know what it is. I don't know. We'll have to see. We can only really speculate and wait and see. I think when the fight happens, I think the consensus is Spence will stop him in the second half of that fight. But Thurman's dangerous early. Thurman is still a savvy guy. Hasn't fought since dominating Barrios, who won on Saturday night against Giovanni Santiago. Santiago, a lot of people thought beat Adrian Broner, and Mario Barrios blew him out. But I don't know, man. I don't. It's speculative. We will have to see. I wish for your $2 super chat, I could factually answer that question, but sometimes I do got to be like you guys too, be a fan and just kind of sit back and speculate on what may or may not happen. Bubba Butts says UFC is greater than boxing. Bubba Butts, if I was Dan Raphael in 2010 and this was the ESPN chats back in the day, I'd pull a Dan Raphael and I'd ban you, sir, for that comment. But we'll keep the First Amendment alive and free here on Fight Hype Live. You go ahead and you talk your shit about boxing if you feel the need to, sir. Raimundo Rendon Jr., do you believe in the glove gate? I mean, initially, no. I still don't. I'll say this. I am a conspiracy theorist. And as a conspiracy theorist, I can never just... what a laughable conspiracy theory. I just can't do that on GP to Deontay Wilder. I'll say this. Fury proved himself to be the better fighter in their 3 fights, period. If, and it's a huge if with no evidence that would hold up in court, but if something happened in fight number 2, Tyson Fury put an end to it in fight number 3, the best heavyweight fight, I think, since Bo and Holyfield. It was better than Louis Klitschko. The third fight between Deontay and Fury, what those two men gave us in the ring that night, was the best heavyweight fight in the new millennium. So Fury proved himself to be the better all-around fighter. He beat Wilder in that trilogy. I will say this. In fight number 2, I was at all 3 fights. I covered all 3 fights. From towards the end of round 1, Wilder's legs were gone. And that was odd to me. Deontay Wilder is a guy who's had the stamina and the conditioning up until that point in his career, February 2020, to score knockouts late in fights, still carry his power for 12 rounds. Not a guy who gassed. And yet by the end of round 1, his legs were jelly, despite having not been hit by anything too hard yet. And by round 2, his legs were gone. And that was odd. He said his costume was too heavy and that drained his legs. My man Shakur Stevenson, I remember interviewing Shakur Stevenson up the escalators after the fight happened, and Shakur said, you want to know the truth from me? I think he was getting too much pussy last night. I think he was fucking too much last night, and he had no legs tonight. That was Shakur's take on it. Deontay's first take was the costume. Then time goes on, and he alleges it's the spiked water. He kind of hints towards Mark Breland was on some kind of take. All kinds of conspiracy theories come out. And I'll say this for Deontay. I didn't pay it any mind until I saw that documentary on Daniel Kinahan from 2 or 3 years ago overseas. Or maybe the BBC did it, and I watched it. And I saw the kind of people Tyson Fury was in bed with. And I remembered great fighters like George Foreman and Sonny Liston and all the old-time heavyweights used to talk about shady shit can happen in championship-level boxing. And I just remember watching that documentary and seeing Kinahan and them and saying, you know what? It's not out of the question. It's not out of the question. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And I believe one of the first interviews Mark Breland did after that fight was with an MTK-related outlet, which adds a little smoke to what Deontay's saying. And then you look at the fact that Deontay was oddly done by the end of round 1, despite that never being his MO as a fighter. And then you look at fight number 2 was such a blowout, and fight number 1 and fight number 3 were so competitive that, Deontay is saying, don't you guys see that something happened in fight number 2 to be such a blowout where the other 2 times we fought each other, it was razor close. Came down to a 12th round knockdown draw, came down to 5 knockdowns in the fight, and finally Fury puts Wilder out. So, hey, Fury was the better fighter. He proved that in the trilogy. Fury, nothing that Deontay alleges would ever hold up in court. But you never know in this world. And when I saw that Kinahan and that BBC documentary, it did raise my eyebrows a little bit, the kind of people Fury's with. Those are legitimate gangsters. Those are guys that are not above doing something like that. They do a lot worse than help fix a fight. So, for the glove thing, the loose gloves, Muhammad Ali's gloves were loose sometimes. You would see Ali all the time have flapping gloves when he was piecing up Chuck Wepner. So I didn't go crazy about the gloves. I don't know. That's how I answer it. As a conspiracy theorist on GP, I can't just clown Wilder for his allegations. And then when I saw that documentary, I did go, well, anything's possible maybe. No Ortiz says, what is the latest you're hearing about the Tank versus Ryan fight? Any new updates? Says No Ortiz for $5. Damn, no, I hate that you... No Ortiz, please rewind to the beginning of the stream where I kind of went over in detail why this week, Thursday, February 16th, maybe Tank's trial, maybe that's the last hurdle. Tank gets through that without no time sentencing. That might be the last hurdle. De La Hoya might be stalling until the 16th because if you go back 10 years in time to 2013 when he had to go to rehab, and then quickly after that relationship between Heyman and Espinoza and Schaefer and Oscar all dissolved and everyone kind of went their separate ways. I'll see it when I believe it. Golden Boy and Showtime working together after all these years. I think if Tank gets through this trial on the 16th, I think Oscar will have kind of ran out of time and ran out of stalling, and he'll have to make that fight, and we'll see Ryan and Tank. But No Ortiz, I appreciate the super chat. Please, if you want the full in-depth on that, just rewind the beginning of the stream where I go over all the Ryan and Tank stuff. Thank you so much. Pugilism said, "Aw man, boxing always been the platform and neutral ground. That's dead center of all industries, illegal and legal. How else you wash blood money? Belongs back in the sport for community." Good comment, Pugilism. Raymundo Rendon Jr. says, why do you think they praise Tank more than the undisputed champ Haney? Well, that depends who you're talking to, right? I imagine some people praise Haney more than Tank and vice versa. I think Haney might actually be ahead of Tank on most pound-for-pound lists. So I don't know if really Tank... I think they're pretty even in terms of how people regard them. Yes, Haney is undisputed, but Tank's fought in a couple divisions, and he's been around longer. And if you're going champion for champion, Tank's fought a few more of those. But he's never unified. He's never been undisputed. So to me, they're kind of equal. Devin's undisputed. Tank's never been unified. But Tank's been around longer, fought a few more names, and done it from 130 to 140. Although 140, it wasn't for a real world title. It was for, a regular belt. But still, Barrios is a guy who, at welterweight, is a big guy. He beat a big 140-pounder. Maybe a weight-trained 140-pounder, but a big 140-pounder. I think they're about even right now in accomplishments. I think they both have something the other needs. I think that Haney has the credibility of being the undisputed lightweight champion that Davis needs, and Davis has the box office stardom that Haney needs. That's why that fight needs to happen at some point. I'm skeptical it ever will, unfortunately, but I think Haney would probably have to, play the B side like he did with Kambosos to make that happen. And not sure he'll be willing to do that all over again now that he's got 4 belts of hardware around him. That doesn't make you want to be the B side anymore. You feel like you're the A side anytime you have those 4 belts. It remains to be seen. So, who wins then, Haney or Tank? I give the edge to Haney because Tank began his career at 130, and Devin will wind up a full-fledged, not a blown-up lightweight, moving up to welterweight. Devin will be a full-fledged welterweight one day. So, Haney's a bigger guy, a naturally taller, longer, bigger guy than Tank, and he has the jab to go along with that length to get off and dictate first. If Tank can't knock Devin out, I think Devin would win a decision in that fight. Raymundo said, I'm at work, just made my day answering me. Thanks for that. You're awesome. You got it, Raymundo. Happy to have you in the chat. Bull says Haney doesn't have better wins. I agree. Tank maybe a little bit better there, but he's unified. He's undisputed. Tank hasn't done that yet, so it's equalizers between the two of them. But Boot Louisiana, Ryan can't fall into the trap that Rolly did of getting the biggest fight and biggest payday, just chasing and chasing, looking to prove something. He has to be patient, or more patient than Tank. You are correct, Louisiana. Rolly got impatient. I remember in that 5th round before he got knocked out, Tank turned the defense up a little bit. It's like he put some Vaseline on his body. He got slicker. He got tougher to touch. And that made Rolly start reaching and getting almost desperate, impatient, like you're talking about. And I remember saying to myself in that 6th round before he got knocked out, I said, Rolly, stay patient. What are you doing? Like, okay, he's making you miss. So your response is to just start throwing more and reaching more. That's how you're going to get caught. You got caught. So, yeah, I agree with you totally. Prada Pierre says Tank KOs Devin Haney. Devin gets caught by overhand lefts. Prada Pierre, you are correct. Jojo Diaz showed at southpaw, shorter southpaw, able to get inside that long, rangy jab of Devin, those long arms. And once he got to a certain distance inside those arms, Devin got hit a lot with that overhand left. And Tank has that shot in his arsenal. So Prada Pierre brings up a great point. Maybe Tank wins that fight by knockout, hitting Devin with the same shots Jojo Diaz hit Devin with, except when Tank Davis hits you with those shots, it's different. So you might be right. I got Haney in that fight, but my God, it'd be nice at some point if we stopped with the hypotheticals and it actually happens at some point, right? Yeah, let's see. Pac-Man, do we have any update on Haney Lomachenko? Last I heard, some point in May, and that Devin is negotiating more money. I think he'll get it. I think Lomachenko wants to fight the best and have, if he's going to stick around and keep fighting at lightweight, you fight the champion. So I think Loma will give him what he wants, and I think that fight happens in May, and I think Haney wins. Nick Gure, last name Ghecher. It's my birthday. Can you give me a shout out? Happy birthday, brother. Nick, you got it. Happy birthday, brother. Thank you for joining me today in the chat, man. Thank you for the super chat. Hope you have a good birthday. Hope you get a pretty girl to give you a nice kiss. Hope you have a good dinner. I hope you get some nice text messages of people making you smile, making you feel loved. And hope you have a good day, brother. Happy birthday to you, Nick. So, you know what? And on that, man, I think we'll about call it a wrap. I love you guys for joining today. You guys really were lively in the chat today. You guys brought the energy, gave me so much to talk about. You guys were awesome. We'll leave on a high note. Thank you, everyone, so much. Have a great weekend. Happy birthday again, Nick. Prada Pierre, thank you so much throughout the chat, brother. Your support doesn't go unnoticed. And everyone, man, you guys were great today in the chat. You made it a lot of fun for me. I'll be back. Before we head out of here, let's just make sure I don't got any fights. I'm pretty sure I don't have any round. You know what? No. Mauricio Lara fights. Lee Wood on Saturday overseas. maybe I'll check back in with you folks and do a round by round. I got some undisputed gameplay set to drop. I got this beautiful Terrence Crawford counterpunching video that we're going to drop on the channel soon. I can't wait for you guys to check that out. Your boy showing off the skill. Damn, ESPN, it's like that. Boxing gets 4 fucking tabs? Jesus. Hold on. Let me go to ESPN NFL. Look at this. They're like Super Bowl, scores, schedule, standings, stats, teams, draft, depth chart, injuries, and more. And more. Because that's not enough on the NFL tab. Boxing, they're like schedule, champions, whatever. Sheesh. Anyway. So this weekend, Luis Neri, WBC Junior Featherweight title eliminator. That's on DAZN. Here's the main fight of the weekend. Lee Wood versus Mauricio Lara. 12 rounds for the WBA featherweight title. Maybe I'll do a round by round for that. You guys in the chat, let me know if that's worthy of a round by round. I will be on live for sure for this fight. Subriel Matias, Jeremias Ponce. I'll have a ZCAP Sunday, not Monday, coming up. Sunday where I'll break down who I think wins that fight between Matias and Ponce. And then that night, I'll also be doing the AB round by round with Michael Williams Jr. Shout out to Tevin Farmer and Mickey Bay. I love Mickey Bay. Great guy out here in Vegas who's helped, continue to school me in boxing when we talk. And then, I gotta call this show. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. Let's see how that goes. Tommy Fury got faster hands, faster feet, got a good jab, amateur background, but Jake Paul's the favorite in that fight. Let's see how it goes. This is the real fight of the night, maybe though. Is Badu Jack against Lunga Makabu for the WBC cruiserweight title. Badu Jack wins that fight, man, and he's had a hell of a career. Winning titles from super middleweight to cruiserweight. So that's what's on the schedule coming up. Hope you guys keep it locked in here on Fight Hype. I love the chat today. Maybe we should switch to Mondays for ZCAP. Maybe you're right. Maybe Mondays are better for the ZCAP because Sundays people are still hungover. Football season's over, but a lot of us were getting ready to watch football. Not kind of taking a break from the boxing. So we'll see. Who's all going to Vegas for David versus Caleb? I'll be there ringside. I'll be calling a round by round ringside that night. I can't wait to call that fight. But all right, everybody, have a great rest of the day. Much love. I'll see everyone later. Peace.